The two athletic directors for the University of Texas. For the women, it is Chris Plonsky. For the men, it is Steve Patterson. Always a pleasure to have you guys here, especially with what's going on in the NCAA. This last Saturday, all 65 members met for the first time, the Power 5 conferences at the NCAA convention, voted on 5 pieces of legislation that are their own. The headliner was full cost of attendance. It passed 79-1. Steve, I'll start with you because this is obviously a lot goes into this. You have the full cost and you have extra aid that goes with it. So how much do you envision each Longhorn student athlete getting a semester?
Well, I don't think it's going to be a whole lot different than what we do with a lot of other students on campus. You know, whether they got a physics scholarship for full cost or whether they've got a band scholarship for full cost. But the difference right now is calculated between what we generally give our student athletes and the actual calculated full cost at the University of Texas is in the $4,500 to $5,000 range. Okay. You know, so we'll just have to look at what it winds up being when we get to next fall, and that's the delta that we'll make up.
Chris, what is this extra aid going to?
Well, there are expenses, there always have been, related to things that athletics and its grant and aid formula have not been able to cover. And they're educationally related. They're also living expense related. So this is sort of a hallelujah moment for especially the 65. This is fair, it's right, it's what we should have been doing. And again, it goes toward the typical cost for any student just to go to college. And it could range from gasoline to haircuts. Yeah,
well, another measure that was approved was a concussion safety protocol. It drew some opposition from the Big 12, notably Texas officials, which didn't think that it went far enough to protect the athlete. Steve, why didn't it go far enough?
Well, we were actually kind of surprised to find out at the convention that Dr. Hainline, who's in charge of overseeing concussion and student health, had nothing to do with the drafting of the legislation. And so we didn't think it was specific enough about making sure that the schools were operating under best practices, something that the University of Texas has done for years. We've been leaders in concussion studies and how we treat our student athletes, and we felt the language was too loose. Now, fortunately, after about 6-8 weeks of going back and forth on the makeup of the legislation and raising the issue rather vociferously a couple of times, we felt like we got a commitment from the Big Ten and the SEC and from Dr. Hainline to draft best practices into the policy and make sure that schools adhere to that.
Well, there was also a discretionary student athlete assistance fund that was voted on. That also passed. Chris, what does this entail for a student athlete?
Well, the NCAA revenue sharing plan has always provided in recent years an opportunity fund to take care of emergency expenses and some other educationally related expenses. Now, the thing moving forward is that SAOF fund, Student Athlete Opportunity Fund, will still exist, but now the financial aid officers on our campus have to prevent double dipping in those areas. So, for example, if you were able to get a clothing allowance from our SAOF fund in the past, that is also part of the cost of attendance, $4,500 to $5,000 a year that's calculated.
Okay.
So the financial aid officer will just say, you got it in this bucket, you're not going to repeat it in this bucket. Because there is a cost of attendance cap that every financial aid officer has to watch for. Otherwise, the students are accountable for that extra delta.
Well, there was another joint resolution that was passed, modernizing the collegiate model. And it seems like this may have been kind of the way to set the tone for the future of the NCAA with the Power 5 conferences. Steve, what is the collective vision for the Power 5s?
Well, I think what's interesting is you're going to have the ability over the next few weeks to start to gather ideas from all the schools and put forward some legislation beyond just what we passed to begin last week. So, you know, every school and every conference is going to have different ideas about that. You know, are freshmen eligible or are freshmen ineligible? Do you want to change what some of the broadcast rules are? Do you want to change recruiting rules? Do you want to change when football players sign or don't sign? You know, all those are the kind of issues that will get vetted, go through the process, the new process of the council. Chris will sit there and vote and hopefully carry the day on everything that we want done.
Well, it has changed a little bit, but now 65 universities, you would think they are more like-minded. How much easier has this been to get stuff done?
The room was really incredibly good on Saturday morning. Again, there was good discourse, not always in sync 100%, but that's, again, a lot easier to have when you're 65 rather than 321. And I do think we ended up on the major points with clarity and with consensus, moving forward with a few tweaks. But I think the most refreshing thing is that in this model, the modern model, the student athletes have a voice, and they were tremendous in our room. You would have thought that they've been running our business for years, but again, they were respectful, they were thoughtful, and they really lent great validity to the conversation.
Well, it's fascinating stuff. It took me about 2 hours just to even get through a lot of it. I'm glad you guys came in and absolutely explained it, so thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.